Recording. So, welcome to Real Talk, divorce, life, and everything in between. With Lorraine Roberts, that's me, and Richard Morden. We're a counsellor and a coach with different stories, different wounds, and one shared message to help you rebuild after it all falls apart. From heartbreak to healing, grieving to growing, and everything no one told you about divorce. We're having the conversations that matter. Real people, real stories, real talk. So let's dive in. And welcome to our first episode. Now, I'm Lorraine Roberts, a holistic counsellor, author, and someone who knows the pain of separation from the inside out. I'm currently navigating the thick of a traumatic divorce, and let me tell you, the emotional landmines are real. But I also know healing is possible because I live it every day with my clients and within myself. And Richard.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'm Richard Morden. I'm certified emotional freedom technique practitioner, NLP practitioner, and co-creator of Time Sweeps. I look at the divorce aspect of life-changing and grief because I'm not a divorcee, I'm a widow, but I understand loss. I understand I've lost long before even my first wife passed. I've faced many deaths in my time, and I understand the grieving process. I also understand how we find our identity in that and who are we after those losses, especially after losing a spouse and suddenly being a widow with two teenage children. And the creation point of how do I hold myself together? How do I keep this together and be there for my kids? And that's when I discovered emotional freedom technique. I look at giving people a chance to find some peace inside. And I help initially with the grounding and the connecting part, giving yourself that emotional space inside to take a breath without feeling the pain, and helping you find that space of creating some boundaries, putting a few rules around, saying no to some things so you can create some space for yourself. And what you do with that time, how do you start the journey of what I call self-care? Looking after yourself and giving yourself what you need, because when you fill your cup first, you have more to share with others and you have discernment in the same time. I teach people the power of no for that reason, because those no's become yeses to you. You start to say yes to yourself finally. And that is a blessing to understand. You start to connect to your intuition, start to connect to yourself, and that allows you to have greater connection with those that are important to you. Like I chose that to really connect with my children, be there after the moment passed and create a life with them after that. I look forward to our journey with you, and we have so much more to share. And I'm ready, and we're here to bring this discussion to you. Thank you.
Yeah, we're coming from two very different personal stories, but both with the same question at the heart of it all. Who am I? And when you lose a partner, whether it's through divorce, death, or betrayal, it can feel like your self-worth was collateral damage. So today we're talking about something foundational. How do you rebuild your self-worth when the person we thought we were is no longer standing in front of us? So, Richard, how do you do that?
Again, with allowing yourself to connect, giving yourself the tools or learning the tools to how to actually calm your nervous system down. Because ultimately this is a physical response with all the emotions connected to it. Your body's in hyper mode. And the physical tools we can provide too, simple stuff, how to regulate yourself, without all the verbiage around it. I can teach a few simple techniques alone that you can, even on the screen, how to do that. And then with there, we start to realize we can sort of calm ourselves down, because there's an old phrase, we don't want to make permanent decisions from a temporary emotion. And even though these emotions may not be temporary and they feel very, very physical, visceral in our systems, when we can look to calm ourselves down and feel a little bit of space, then we can create greater choices for ourselves and not feel like we're running from one thing to the next or trying to replace. And I'm adamant about self-care, and so we're not replacing, a partner with another partner. We're helping ourselves heal and helping ourselves to look at life in a fresh perspective. And maybe as we'll talk further in this, of looking at all the ways we've been sort of steered and how we've made choices in life, realize we haven't really made choices for ourselves.
No,
And
we
so we want
haven't.
to teach you how to make choices for yourself because that's selfish. It's called self-care. And I'm
Mm,
going to stop right there because I think that's our path forward. And we're going to really highlight this many, many times through these episodes. Thank you.
mm. So we want you all to grab a cup or a tissue or a journal and whatever you need, and let's talk about rewriting the end. So starting with you, the listener, how do you rewrite the end? So, Richard, before we were just talking about what we want, and we were talking about, how in our own journeys we didn't know that we wanted things and we didn't know to ask for things. Um, I know in my own experience, I was always told, don't ask for what you want. So I never did. And it never occurred to me until after once I was separated that I didn't know what I wanted. So I knew I had to work through that to find out what I wanted. And then it took me years later to actually work out that I actually need to tell people what I want. Because if I don't tell people, no one will still give me what I wanted. So that was one of the biggest lessons for me was to actually ask. It sounds so silly and so logical that you need to tell people what you want. Because if you don't tell people what you want, you'll never get it. And I know your situation was similar.
Growing up in a family with backstory of watching my mother's journey with cancer for a dozen years, seeing her death when I was 20, and there wasn't the money, there wasn't anything, so you learn not to ask.
Mm,
And having we had a small farm, so it was always kind of work, but you put your head down and you just did as you're told because you didn't think about yourself other than feeling like the world, ran you over. The world just was nothing was in your control. The
mm,
world just happened to be this thing that happened to you, and what happened to you was always feeling like crap.
mm,
And it wasn't until I saw the movie The Secret in 2006, and what I received from that was you create your life by the way you think, and I tried and I looked like, what does that mean? I mean, and I had to attach, many years later, I understand how you think and feel about the way you're thinking, and how you feel inside is what you're attracting.
mm,
So when you have that sense of feeling and expectation, and sense some simple ways of that, and being curious with the world and asking questions, I carry two questions around always, like what else is possible, and how does it get any better than this? Because I believe the universe responds to curiosity, and it's shown up so much for myself, my wife, and our travels, that we continually just ask questions and allow the universe to unfold for us in very magical ways. But we just stay curious, but we are asking. And I think asking for something, like we say, everything I ask doesn't happen. Well, what if you asked for a cup of coffee from a friend? Could you get that? What if you asked for, to meet somebody for coffee? Could you ask for that?
Oh,
Simple stuff.
my mother used to tell me when I was a child, if we went to visit someone, if they asked you if you wanted a drink, you would say no because you didn't want to put them out. So I would be dying of thirst. Someone would say, "Would you want a drink?" Oh, no, 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 I can't put you out. No, 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 thank you. I, and I'd walk out going, "Oh, I'm going to die because I'm so thirsty." And I couldn't ask. Do you know? When it was only like a few years ago, realistically, no, maybe 10 years ago or so, someone said to me, if you constantly say no to somebody who offers you something, you're actually making them feel terrible because they want
Yeah.
to serve you. And I went, but I'd be putting them out. And they said, but you're denying them serving you. And I'm saying, so if I'm dying of thirst, instead of saying no, no, because I don't want you, they're actually grateful that they can give me a drink and stop me dying of thirst. Yes. And I never occurred to me that by denying it, was actually denying them the gift of giving to me.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge light bulb and such a simple thing that it never occurred to me because Mum had said you put them out. Mm. So
So, what lessons have you learned that may be apparent after this discussion that you were living with and still living with and going, oh my God, what if I changed my mind on these things? You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to have different points of view because you
Absolutely.
have different information.
Look, our upbringing as children is not gospel. You know, our parents didn't know everything and weren't always right.
Correct.
And I
So
can
that,
actually think about things very differently and still be okay.
and we're allowed to ask. We're allowed to ask. I'm going to plant this seed. I want to teach people how to be resourceful, how to resource themselves, or through what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to bring up you're going to hear this many times, the 4 stages of competence.
Yeah.
When you look that up, what that is, I'm not going to say it all here, and understand how to be resourceful in those 4 stages, because we're in the 4 stages of competence from our first breath to our last breath. And learning to ask is one of the key components of that. When you look at yourself and having this change or something's going on, who do I ask? And who can I ask for help and this support? And I'm going to teach you guys is asking is one of the most powerful things you can do
Mm.
to sometimes to engage with people, to offer people a chance to connect with you. And what ultimately it allows you to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is connection, it is not weakness. So when you
Mm.
learn to ask, and oftentimes when people ask you and you say, of course I could help you, do you understand how good that is when you can give them advice or support, not in a
Yeah.
giving sacrificial way, in a way that's supportive and engaging, and they look at you going, and they look to you and say, thank you, I really needed that. How does that feel for you when
Yeah.
you allow them to thank you?
Yeah. 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 And don't you feel so good when you give to someone?
Yeah,
You just feel fantastic when you can actually give and help someone. Gee, you feel good. So you're actually doing them the biggest favor by asking for help.
absolutely.
Mm.
See you in the next episode.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.